Hello, I'm Steve Hedlund, Communications and Events Manager at the Global Aquaculture Alliance. So GA announced recently that it's relaunching its signature Goal Conference, featuring a hybrid experience with a series of virtual events leading up to an in-person event in Seattle. Now, this approach builds upon the virtual event that GA organized last October, featuring 10 sessions and about 15 hours of content over the course of 4 days. Now, again, one of those 10 sessions was chaired by our very own Dr. George Chamberlain, GA's president and founder. The session was titled Health Check, Updates on Shrimp Disease Management and Finfish Welfare. Speakers included representatives of aquaculture centers in Asia Pacific, Monterey Bay Aquarium, Nautilus Collaboration, Shrimp Vet Laboratory, and CP Foods. So George, I'd like you to kick things off, please, by asking you, so what are the key takeaways from this particular Goal 2020 session?
Thanks, Steve. The health check session began with a presentation by Dr. Jie Huang of the Network of Aquaculture Centres in Asia Pacific on 2 new shrimp diseases in China. One is called Decapod Iridescent Virus 1, or DIV1, and the second one is glass post-larvae disease. For DIV1, Dr. Huang explained that its incidence in China has actually declined from about 15% in 2017 to about 10% in 2019. But there has also been a worrisome detection of DIV1 in black tiger shrimp collected in the Indian Ocean. So it's a disease that should continue to be monitored, especially to prevent its entry into new regions. Dr. Huang gave a detailed description of the gross signs of DIV1 and the methodologies for sample collection, diagnostic testing, and surveillance. And fortunately, commercial test kits are available for DIV1. For glass post-larvae disease, Dr. Huang explained that the gross symptoms of a translucent body of post-larvae can actually be caused by more than one thing. First, it can be caused by virulent strains of a bacteria, such as Vibrio parahemolyticus, or by a new virus called hepatopancreas and digestive tract necrosis virus, or HIVN. And this is an area that actually needs more investigation. Commercial test kits are not yet available for HIVN, but the primers are available from Dr. Huang's lab, so any pathologist could contact him to develop their own diagnostic tests. Then the session moved on with Belinda Yaxley reviewing the issue of animal welfare, which is becoming more and more prominent in the aquaculture world. She discussed why it matters and what are the guidelines to consider in terms of animal husbandry and humane slaughter systems. She also described ongoing work to develop educational modules on animal welfare at the Center for Responsible Seafood. So that was pretty much the highlights of the presented session, Steve.
No, and George, as I mentioned in the introduction, we're trying to build upon what was discussed last year. What one issue related to animal health and welfare would you focus on in 2021 that perhaps in retrospect didn't get as much consideration as you wish it had in 2020? Now, animal disease management is always front and center at the Goal Conference, but increasingly we're seeing fish welfare being given the attention that it deserves. Can you expand upon that, please?
Yeah, Steve. Well, we had some lively discussions on animal welfare, on disease management in Chile by Rolando Ibarra, and shrimp diseases. But I think the little part of the discussion that was totally unexpected and really educational was a discussion between Dr. Loc Tran and Robbins McIntosh about a very problematic disease in Asia with the very lovely, heartwarming name of white feces disease. And they actually revealed something that until now has not been publicly known. So very important outcome of the session. So the confusing part about this disease, white feces disease, is that it's often correlated with the presence of a microsporidian parasite called EHP, but not always. And so the question has been, what is the real cause? Well, in this discussion, we learned that EHP alone can't cause this white feces disease. It has to be in association with the, until now, unheard of anaerobic bacteria called propionigenium. Propionigenium. And this was verified by the CP group by taking isolates of both EHP and propionigenium and re-inoculating them into healthy shrimp to recreate the symptoms. Now that's called, in the disease world, Koch's postulates. When you can take a healthy shrimp, reinfect it, and recreate the same symptoms, then that's a demonstration of the disease. But another piece of evidence mounted in Thailand, another researcher named Dr. Kalaya, a Thai researcher at Mahidol University, did metagenomics research where she looked at the DNA of white feces outbreaks and looked at all the bacteria associated with it and found that this same bacteria, propionigenium, an anaerobic bacteria, was associated with all the outbreaks. So it's very good proof that helps us now understand the cause of white feces. And it turns out that this irreversible white feces with EHP and this anaerobic bacteria together is one form, one manifestation, but that anaerobic bacteria by itself can also cause the disease, but that bacteria is associated with the sludge on the bottom of a pond, and just by managing the sludge, it's easy to manage the disease that just involves the anaerobic bacteria. So the real challenge is when you have that anaerobic bacteria and the EHP together. But now that we understand it, it'll be much easier to manage.
And finally, George, as you mentioned, as the conversation progressed, your distinguished panel of speakers spoke more openly about the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. Now, you singled out one series of comments here that kind of resonated with yourself and also with our audience. Can you please cue it up? What are we about to watch?
Yeah, I think out of all the discussions, that one on white feces and the real cause of it, it was so unexpected, came out of the discussions, is a great little clip to watch, a couple minutes that reveals a brand new finding in the shrimp farming world.
Okay, thank you, George. Let's play the clip.
There's EHP white feces, which I call serious white feces, that you don't cure. And then you have the other white feces that's not associated with EHP, and that can go away. You can actually cure that one. Now, white feces for me is EHP, the serious, EHP plus a bacteria called propogenium. It's an anaerobic bacteria. And our lab identified it by getting an SPF PL, and we were doing EHP challenges, and we put EHP in on this SPF PL. We got white feces. We isolated the propogenium in an anaerobic jar. We were able to do Koch's postulates and take that one specific bacteria, and anytime we add it to an EHP shrimp, you get white feces. By itself, there is no white feces. EHP by itself is no white feces, but the combination of the propogenium and the EHP, white feces within 1 day. Now, at the same time we were doing this, Dr. Kali at Biotech was using a metagenomics approach, which is DNA, and she went out and looked at the bacteria blast from 6 or 7 EHP ponds in different parts of Thailand, and all the ponds, the one correlation with was propogenium. So propogenium, she had indirectly deducted through metagenomics. We had deducted it through actually isolating the live bacteria, doing Koch's postulates, She has not been able to do Koch's postulates because you can't do that with DNA only. And it's a difficult bacteria to maintain. So we've transferred it to her 2 or 3 times, and she's yet to be able to maintain it to do Koch's postulates. But we're pretty confident that the propaginium, which can reside in the anaerobic intestinal tract of shrimp, is one of the ways that white feces is transferred and is created when that bacteria comes in contact with EHP.